The elevator stops on the 28th floor. You're carrying your laptop with a stack of freshly printed proposals tucked under your arm. The access control beeps. The light turns red. The receptionist looks up at you and says you don't have access to this floor yet. Behind the glass doors, the conference room is already filled with a long table. One seat at the far end is empty. On the projection screen is the page you stayed up until 2 a.m. revising last night. Someone else is presenting it. You stand outside the door and watch your boss nod. The person beside him flips through your proposal to the last page. No one turns around. For the first time, you realize that in the company, some doors don't care how much work you've done. They only care whether you've been allowed inside. When you first joined the company, you thought the rules were simple. You thought delivering on time, working late to revise documents, and volunteering for more work would get you promoted. You thought being the last light on in the office would make the system remember you. You thought every late night would eventually turn into a reward. So you took on every request. After everyone else went home, you were still fixing spreadsheets. The printer kept spitting out document after document. Messages kept popping up in the bottom right corner of your screen. You renamed files Final Version 2, then Final Confirmed Version. At the meeting the next day, your boss asked just one question. Who signed off on this number? You said nothing, because your job was to organize the information, not to make the decision. Rule 1. In an organization, being busy only proves that you're useful. It doesn't prove that you're indispensable. Later, you noticed something was off. There was a person who barely ever made PowerPoints. He often came to meetings with nothing but a black folder. Once he sat down, he never rushed to speak. But whenever the discussion got stuck, everyone's eyes turned toward him. Product asked about the schedule. He says, we need to look at the customer window. Finance asks about the budget. Which account should this money go through to minimize risk? The boss asks about risk. He opens the folder and points to a line of numbers. This figure was already confirmed last week, he says. The room fell silent. Watching him, you suddenly realized that he wasn't doing more work. He had made himself impossible to bypass. In the elevator, you overheard two managers quietly say, without him, this project will be difficult to sign off on. That was when you understood. The org chart only shows hierarchy. Real influence is hidden inside the process. Rule 2. Companies don't necessarily reward the busiest people. They are more likely to reward those who make critical problems simpler. After that, you began dividing your daily work into two categories. Some work is like water flowing past you. You leave nothing behind. For example, fixing other people's formatting, chasing deadlines, moving data, and organizing meeting notes. They fill your calendar, but it's hard for them to become associated with your name. Other work leaves a trace. You understand a client's real needs. You know why a certain cost can't be reduced? You can break down a problem that has caused 3 weeks of cross-department into 3 actionable steps. You can help your boss carry one less uncertainty into a meeting. The first kind consumes your time without increasing your bargaining position. The second brings you closer to information, resources, results, and responsibility. At 6:30 p.m., the office lights turn cold. You look over today's to-do list again. Of the 27 tasks, only 3 are connected to actual outcomes. Most of the rest simply make it easier for other people to keep using you. Rule 3. People at the bottom deliver tasks. People at the top deal with consequences. The consequences you can take responsibility for. Determine how close you can get to the core. You're brought to a client dinner. Inside the private dining room is a round table. When you walk in, the server has just poured tea beside the head seat. You sit near the door, with your laptop bag at your feet. The client's boss is 10 minutes late. He walks in without introducing himself. Yet everyone in the room stands at the same time. Once dinner begins, no one talks about the details of the proposal. They talk about delivery timelines, payment schedules, who has the authority to make the final call, and who will take responsibility if something goes wrong. The 10 pages of selling points you prepared never get opened. The director sitting beside you says only 3 things. First, he confirms the other side's concerns. Second, he sets the boundaries of what can be conceded. Third, he puts responsibility back into the contract terms. The server comes in to change the place. The sound is barely noticeable. No one at the table is moving their chopsticks. You see that power is not always loud? Much of the time, it shows itself in who people look at before they speak. Rule 4. The closer you get to the core, the less the discussion is about effort, and the more it is about risk, boundaries, and allocation. Eventually, you get into a budget meeting. The meeting room is on a higher floor. There is no receptionist at the door, only a quieter glass door. Before you go in, an assistant takes away several people's printed materials and leaves only folders marked with version numbers. At the long table, no one asks who worked the most overtime. Everyone focuses on 3 things. If this money is invested, who is responsible for the result? If it fails, who will explain the loss? And if it succeeds, which department gets the benefit? You sit against the wall and listen for 2 full hours. You realize the company is like a slowly turning machine. People at the bottom handle tasks. Middle management coordinates resources. Senior leadership manages uncertainty. With every level upward, there is less action, more responsibility, and shorter language. You used to think a promotion meant getting a different seat. Later, you realized that even when the title changes, your elevator access may not change immediately. What really changes is the kind of problem people start to put in your hands. Rule 5. A person's position often depends on how much uncertainty they can handle. From then on, you stopped filling every minute with tasks. You started doing 3 things. First, you separated your daily work. Which tasks merely consume time and which can leave behind reusable methods, data, relationships, or judgment. The first kind needs to get done. The second needs to go deeper. Second, whenever you take on a new task, you ask where it leads. Does it bring you closer to the customer, the budget, key data, cross-department decisions, or some real outcome? If you're only cleaning up someone else's noise, you control how much effort you invest. Third, you find a small area for yourself, not by simply declaring that you are responsible, within one metric, one process, or one customer group. You make yourself the person others think of when a problem comes up. Several months later, it's the same conference room. This time, you are not sitting by the door. You connect your laptop to the projector and show only 3 slides. The first is the current situation. The second is the risk. The third presents 2 options. After you finish speaking, the room falls silent for 2 seconds. Your boss doesn't evaluate it immediately. He turns to finance and asks, "If we go with this plan, can the budget be adjusted?" You know this isn't a victory. It's only a signal. You are no longer just someone who gets assigned work. You are starting to enter the place where problems are defined. So what you really need to learn in your career is not how to make everyone like you, nor is it about giving every evening to the company. You need to see clearly who gets to define the standards, who bears the risk, who connects the resources, and who ultimately allocates the results. When your work starts moving closer to these positions, your time becomes more than just time. It slowly becomes experience, credibility, judgment, and the power to choose. The elevator doors open again. This time, the access light is green.